Do you want to learn how to steal customer credit card information from major retailers so you can buy anything you want?
Well, we can't help you with that. But among the many IT problems we solve, Barracuda's award-winning firewalls prevent hackers from taking your valuable data to the bank. Reclaim your network like 150,000 other businesses have. To learn more about protecting customer data and your reputation, visit barracuda.com/firewalls.
Coming up on the Best of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast, Herm Edwards tells us which SEC players in the NFL draft landed in the right spot. Mark Schlabach releases his way too early top 25 and only has one SEC team in the top 5. Which team made the cut? Plus, a Finebaum phoner feud. It's the Best of the Finebaum Show podcast, and it starts right now.
This is the Best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Right out of the chute when we last saw you, Colin Cowherd was a big conversation piece blasting the SEC. The SEC turned out to have more players chosen than anyone else in the entire draft. Danny begins the coverage on this Monday. Good afternoon, Danny.
Hey, how you doing, Paul?
Very well.
I just watched Colin today. I never watch him, but I heard what he said Friday, and Washington, D.C. ate a little crow, and that's one of the most arrogant suckers I've ever seen in my life.
What did he say? I didn't see it.
He just dismissed that the SEC had more than any other conference drafted, and he was saying that 99 people in the Hall of Fame were first-round draft choices, and the rest of them didn't even matter. That's true. The Pac-12, they had I think 11 in the first round, and the SEC had 7. And I think we wound up with SEC with 53 and Pac-12 with 39. So he was just dismissing it and still talking about the SEC's on the downslide, and they were specializing in the 300-pound monsters, and they couldn't keep up with the fast football today and stuff like that. And he just went on and on about it, and I finally had to turn him off before I threw something at the TV. But he just cannot get it through his head that the SEC is still the best conference in the country.
Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it. Joe is in College Station, and good afternoon, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Paul?
Oh, well. Thank you very much.
Hey, Paul, I got a little bit of a problem with you. I'm over here in College Station. I listen to your show every day, but you always, for some reason, keep forgetting about Texas A&M. You keep forgetting that when we've been in the SEC, this is going to be our 4th year. Our first year, we went down to Alabama, and we won that game. They came down to College Station. It was a good fight, and they came out with a 8-point win.
I was at both those games, Joe. I remember them well.
Well, for some reason, you guys keep talking about Tennessee and.
Well, let me ask you a question, Joe. Let's cut to the chase here.
Okay.
What, other than the win in 2012 in Bryant-Denny Stadium, what else has Texas A&M done since they've joined the SEC?
Well, our first game last year, we went to South Carolina and we put a whooping on them.
Okay. And what happened after that?
Everyone keeps forgetting about that.
You beat a 6-6 team. What else have you done?
Well, that was the first game of the season.
No, just answer my question. Listen, I was there. I've been to all 3 games that you referenced. You don't need to educate me on those, but I appreciate the heads up. What have you done? I'm asking you a question. You gave me a win over a 6-6 team. What else?
Okay, we played Arkansas, and it was an overtime game. We still won that game.
I'll help you along. You beat Auburn. I'm just making it easier for you at Auburn.
Okay.
What else have you done?
But the third year, you got to understand, we went to the bowl game, and we still.
No, I mean, I'm just asking you a question. You're asking me why am I not referencing A&M in regard to teams that have had great accomplishments? And
you talk about Tennessee, and Tennessee they haven't done anything for like the past. I don't know.
I'm aware of that. I mean, Joe, I'm perfectly aware of all these things. I'm just trying to. The Tennessee right now, people think they're going to do a lot. They're going to be in some top 25s. They're expected to have a big year. What about A&M?
And then we are going to be in the top 25 because one, we got Kyle Allen that's coming back. This is going to be a full year for him.
Okay.
We still got our offense. We still got Josh Reynolds coming back, and we got Speedy Knowles coming back.
This is all great.
And
this is all great.
Our defense is going to be a lot improved.
Let me ask you a question, Joe.
Uh-huh.
You got a couple of really impressive wins there. Agreed?
Agreed.
How do you explain 59-0 to Alabama last year in late October in Tuscaloosa?
Well, that's what I'm saying. They put a whooping on us. You can't explain that. Our defense is horrible.
59-0. You're telling me I'm supposed to look at A&M and go, wow, this program is coming of age? I mean, you mentioned the first game of the year, but you don't mention the game in late October when you were humiliated. Well, that's a pretty big game against the.
Bad team.
Wouldn't you say that was a pretty big game?
That was a pretty big game. I'm not going to deny that, and I know, and I said that we did get it was a bad loss for us, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, you got to understand that we coming back this year. We still got our offense. We got a quarterback that's going to be a full year that's had off season to practice and learn the playbook. We got a great defensive coordinator that's going to work our defense.
I agree.
He's definitely going to be better than being the last defensive team in the league. So I just want you to give us the respect, and you start talking about Texas A&M, gig them, all right? So that's all I got to say. Have a good one, Paul.
Okay, listen, I'm not being ugly. I like Texas A&M. I'm just trying to look at the facts of the matter, and you come in here accusing us of being prejudiced toward Tennessee. I just simply asked you what A&M has done since it's come into the league. It's created a lot of noise, a lot of buzz, but how many impressive wins? That's all I asked you. Not trying to be rude, just trying to get some facts. Lance is up next. What's up, Lance?
Yeah, all you Gator fans have been hating on Will Muschamp last 2 years. Awful funny to me, we have more players drafted than any other school in the SEC. And I sit around and watch all weekend. Every draft expert, listen to your show. I love Marcus Spears, but I can't believe he had the nerve to say Leonard Williams is a better prospect than Dante Fowler Jr.
Yeah, let me ask you a question here, Lance. Okay, so with all these great draft choices Florida has produced, and we saw them this year and last and the year before, what did Florida get out of this? I mean, Will Muschamp was a disaster as a head coach. I mean, they got nothing out of all this talent. Nothing.
Marcus Spears said it best. Players get coaches fired. Will Muschamp couldn't get fan support. I'm probably the only Gator fan that wanted Will Muschamp to come back this year.
Why would you have possibly wanted him to come back?
I told you, man, you win with defense. The defense always shows up. I don't want to turn into the new Auburn where you go in Alabama and get beat 59-44. That don't make a lot of sense to me. I like what Big King John said. Bring Muschamp back, bring Roper back. You got another year with the quarterback. I probably would have been better off that way. That's just my opinion. But let's talk about Dante Fowler, man. How can anybody say Leonard Williams is a better prospect than Dante Fowler? Dante Fowler being coached by Dan Quinn. He was the defensive coordinator of Legion of Boom, plus Muschamp. Man, Dante Fowler can put his hand down in a 4-3. He can stand up in a 3-4. That's versatility, baby. And he's the best pass rusher in the draft.
Okay. Thanks, Lance. Appreciate it. A lot of Florida support, A&M support today. We've only just begun on a new week.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Joe Tessitore. I watched Tess all night on Saturday night. He was hosting the coverage leading up to Manny and Mayweather on ESPN, and what a fine job he did. Joe, thanks for the time. I trust you made it out of Vegas alive.
Let me tell you something. 7 days in Vegas, Paul, not good. It's a one-night town. Fortunately, we were working so much that it didn't quite have the impact that it could. That's a very nice Burberry tie you're wearing today.
Thank you.
Very, very nice. Linda has been doing a wonderful job with your closet.
You know why I could afford it? Because I didn't spend $100 on the fight Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, it was. Listen, I'm laughing a little bit with everybody's reaction here because I've covered Mayweather for 20 years. That is every single Floyd Mayweather fight. In this generation of boxing, we have had some of the great brawls. Gaddy and Ward and Castillo and Corrales. There are great punchers out there in boxing that are risk-reward fighters. Floyd Mayweather is a businessman who just happens to be incredibly defensively skilled and plies his craft by raking in millions in pay-per-view. So everybody else is stunned. Everybody in boxing expected just that.
And what about how would you have contrasted him to Pacquiao, who looks like a different type of fighter, but some wondered why Pacquiao just didn't go for broke on Saturday night?
Because he's incapable of it at this point. There's two reasons why. At a certain point, when you're a certain age in boxing, that age shows up. And in the case of Manny Pacquiao, 36 years old, with what his odometer is reading.
The odometer right now is reading 0 because we lost Joe. We'll see if we can reclaim that in just a moment. But we're chatting with Joe Tessitore right now. He covered the fight for ESPN. One thing about Joe, who you may or may not know, he has covered boxing throughout his entire career. So this isn't just some guy you rolled out of bed and put in Vegas. Joe, you were saying the last thing I heard was odometer. Yes.
Yeah, his odometer obviously has been running over 100,000 for a long time now. He's been in a lot of brutal fights. He started his career in rugged fights. His 36 is much different than Mayweather's protected 38 years old. And at a certain point with Pacquiao, the fighter who late in that fight, had it been 6-10 years ago, fighting hungry and desperate and urgent, he would have gone for broke. He would have chased down a Mayweather and taken some chances and thrown power punches. But when you're his age, and Mayweather's counter-punching you. Hey, I'm going to give you a basketball analogy for people, and a lot of times this weekend we were using the phrase counter-punching a lot and getting to the inside. We're using a lot of boxing jargon that I think mainstream sports fans really, they think they do understand, but they don't quite understand. A counter-puncher sits back and waits and lays a trap. You throw a lead punch. You're an aggressor. In the case of Pacquiao, you throw a lunging left hand. Floyd Mayweather has enough of a space where he wants you to throw that left hand. He counters it with a sharp, viper striking attack right hand. It would be akin to basketball of Pacquiao trying to drive to the lane and make a layup every single time against somebody who can block his shot easily and reject it. But what happens when that happens in basketball? Eventually you stop driving for the hole, right? You're going to settle for outside shots. Well, that's what happened in this fight. You can drive to the hole in the first 6 rounds. You may do well. In the 4th round, he lands a left hand. And Mayweather covers up. In the 6th round, he scores with 2 left hands. But eventually, when you're being countered the whole time, when that's being nullified, when it doesn't work, you're going to stop leading and being aggressive, and those lead lunging left hands are going to go away. That's why you saw Pacquiao just shrink in the second half of that fight. The most telling sign was the 12th round. When you know you're losing the fight, and you still aren't making the fight. You still aren't being the aggressor. And, in fact, you were backed up at one point in the 12th round. I'm not a big fan of Floyd Mayweather's style, but I respect how skilled he is defensively, how great he is as a counterpuncher. It was exactly the kind of fight I expected it to be.
Joe, you've seen it all in the sport of boxing, thoroughbred racing, college football, pro football, basketball. In terms of spectacle, where would this one rank?
The Friday weigh-in alone was unlike anything I've ever seen in sports, and it doesn't really rank in sports because this went far beyond a sports event, an athletic event. The build-up, the hype, the cross-section globally, not just cross-section of American society, globally what you had here, the money you had in town, the spectacle of it all. To be at that weigh-in that Friday with over 16,000 people who went out of their mind to see 2 guys come into the arena, get on a scale, and then walk off, just to absorb it all, just to breathe in the energy. Part of the big event in super fight boxing is the anticipation. We forget that. It's not necessarily just about the 36 minutes it takes to fight 12 rounds. It's the anticipation. It's the build-up. It's taking in that energy and feeling it all. And trust me, you got your money's worth if you were there the whole week, especially Friday into Saturday being at the MGM Grand. It felt the part.
In terms of celebrity, would this be the biggest you've ever seen personally? Because it seemed like everyone was there, including you.
Please. Undoubtedly, Paul, it was all about who has juice. If you looked at the first 3 rows, and you can go online and go through the photos of this. If you look at the first 3 rows, what I marveled at is it was CEOs and chairmen of major companies anybody who ran a broadcast network or media group flamed by, world-renowned singers, actors, industry insiders. So it was a who's who beyond just the typical actor or pro athlete type. It was, everybody from Les Moonves to CEOs of internet companies to hedge fund guys to global gambling whales. It was incredible to see who was in the first 5 rows. There's one guy that if you look through some of those photos, I think you may know, Paul. But we'll talk about that later offline.
I can't wait to. I think I know who you're talking about.
There was also another SEC coach there that you didn't mention. I know you showed Stoops, but there was another SEC coach that was there in the arena with 4 seats.
Well, we saw Cal, but was it someone else?
Yeah, who would be your guess?
Well, the guys in the control room. May I take a shot at this?
Pinkle.
No, it wasn't. I Gary Pinkle.
I'll give you 2 more strikes.
Saban.
No, that wasn't Saban.
No, it wasn't Saban.
I know Hugh Freeze was at Talladega Sunday, so I'm ruling him out.
Right.
What about Brett Bielema? He's the guy that seemed like he would like.
Kevin someone.
Oh yeah, Hollywood someone.
Uh-huh.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Woo, that's news here today, Tess.
If that's news, then we need a better news organization, Paul.
Let me move on from the fight to something you did. You went from Neyland Stadium to the MGM Grand in just a very short period of time. What was your takeaway from Tennessee spring game?
Liked what I saw of Josh Dobbs. Liked what I saw out of Alvin Kamara. I think Mike DeBoer is going to be just fine as the new offensive coordinator. I think the young talent is going to be very, very good. I don't know if you saw Jack Jones, the true freshman offensive tackle in the circle drill, ripping a guy's helmet off, but that got my interest. I think obviously Dobbs needs to stay healthy, although Quentin Dormady, the true freshman early enrollee quarterback, really impressed me for a kid that should be getting ready for his prom and is going to actually go back to Texas and walk at his high school graduation and just played in a spring game. I thought he looked very good, very accurate and poised. We had the breaking news with the receiver situation with Pearson while we were there. Defensively, most of the defensive linemen that you would expect to star for Tennessee this coming year were out injured. Derek Barnett and Kurt Magid and Danny O'Brien, Williams, Vereen, Phillips was out. But then you saw a really strong secondary. Sutton and Mosley are going to be very good corners, and they're talented. They're talented in the back end. They're talented at the defensive line. The offensive line is going to need the young guns to step up. Drew Richmond isn't there yet, the true freshman, the other top 10 tackle that they recruited. The recruiting has been outstanding, and it's starting to show up with both the early enrollees and the now sophomore class that was that outstanding class from last year. So I was impressed. I left Tennessee, broadcasting Tennessee's spring game, thinking Tennessee is exactly what everybody expects them to be. They're the trendy pick. They're the team with the obvious uptick. I just hope the fans understand that you can be that team, but unfortunately when you play this schedule, it doesn't necessarily mean you're playing for an SEC championship.
Yeah, I'm not sure the fans have quite gotten the memo from the experts, but hopefully they will. Joe, I know it's been a long run from Knoxville to Vegas and back. Get some rest. I know you won't, but we encourage you to at least take the rest of the day off and watch us.
Oh, that's so kind of you. I will just sit back on the couch and watch you in your Burberry tie all afternoon while I'm Finebaum. And I will see you down in Destin, Florida in just
we'll be there in 3 weeks.
I'm really looking forward to that and being with Commissioner Sly for his last Destin officially as commissioner before we welcome in Greg Sankey.
No doubt. Thanks, Joe. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Be well, Finebaum.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Let's check in with Elizabeth in Seattle. How are you, Elizabeth?
Hi, Paul. I'm a first-time caller.
Well, thank you.
To this show, and I'm really excited to talk to you. I'm a little bit nervous because, since Jim is going to scan all your callers anymore. So I did call you. I did call you a couple times when you were in Birmingham because I lived in Birmingham at the time. So you are familiar with me, or
I sure am.
And it's great to see you it's great to see you out here on the West Coast. It blew my mind. I was just flipping through the channels. It's just all this Colin Cowherd stuff. I've lived out here for a long time, and I remember when he was on the NBC station in Portland, Oregon. And I'll never forget, we were watching the news one night, and he came on, and he used to have these little Colin Cowherd moments, or like little segments that he would do besides the regular sport. And I'll never forget it. One time he said that he predicted that Portland was going to beat the Bulls because Clyde Drexler was better than Michael Jordan. And we just laughed. And I think that people out on the West Coast who knew him just kind of know that he's not stupid. And I don't think he's cruel when he says Southerners. I mean...
Well, let me say this, and I know Colin very well, and I do think, at the risk of upsetting many people, he is one of the smartest people I've ever met. He makes arguments about as cleverly as you can possibly do, and his goal is to tweak, and that's what I mean, there are various kinds of talk show hosts, and that's what he does, because he has a show where primarily he is opining on things, and if you have to talk for 2 or 3 hours without guests or phone calls, you have to make a point now and then. You just can't read the Manhattan Yellow Pages.
Exactly. But I think, so everyone out here kind of just knows to expect that from him because, good grief, who says that Michael Jordan, is going to get beat by Clyde Drexler?
Sure.
The other thing I wanted to say about what he said about Southerners is I don't think that was intentionally meant to be derogatory. I could be wrong, but it's just a different... if you say yes, sir, or yes, ma'am to a woman or a man in Seattle, they'll look at you and they think you're...
Oh, no, I know what you're talking about. I've done that before because I grew up in the South, and I said yes, ma'am to someone once in New York, and she about took my head off.
I know. But then the last thing I wanted to point out about Colin Cowherd is, how he's trying to convince everybody that, the SEC is out of here. And I can just tell you, I was at Seahawks games where they play Sweet Home Alabama every time Sean Alexander scores a touchdown. And people in Seattle loved that song. And my brother growing up was a huge Alabama fan. My boss was a huge Tennessee fan. And now I have nephews that would die to play for Nick Saban. And you'll never guess what the other team that they would want to play for. Notre Dame.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. So it's almost like it's not even SEC. It's like who...
Elizabeth, you know me, but and I've done this before. But when a fan base is easy to rile up, you rile them up, and I can't act like I've never done that before in my career. I don't really do it as much now because I think as I've matured, gotten older, whatever it is, I've realized that there's a certain foolishness to it, and it's easier to work from the middle than from the extreme. Hey, thank you very much for the call. Always enjoy it.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We were looking at Mark Schlabach's way too early top 25. Mark taking a look at the upcoming college football season. Ohio State, TCU number 2, Oregon and Auburn at number 4. Alabama is at 7. Mark joins us, and Mark's always good to catch up. Certainly in putting this together, as you do this a couple of times a year before the season, what was your biggest headache, so to speak, trying to decide this team versus that team?
Probably just the fact that, there's so many unsettled quarterback situations out there, starting with Ohio State, obviously, with the 3-quarterback race there. It looks like it's going to be Cardell Jones. But, what's going to happen to Braxton Miller if he ended up in Tuscaloosa, even though everybody says it's not going to happen? That could certainly change things. Would have liked a little more clarity on the quarterback position at Alabama. And, Notre Dame is still got an unsettled race. So a lot of top 15, top 25 teams out there that still have, a quarterback derby to play out in preseason camp.
Let's look at the SEC for a second. Certainly, your list is chock full of SEC schools, but the most important decision you had to make is Auburn or Alabama. We all know that's where the SEC has been decided for at least the last 6 years, and the national championship race as well. Was it home field or something else that put Auburn at number 4 over Alabama?
I think home field has a lot to do with it. But, I think Jeremy Johnson, if he's as good as advertised and he's as good as Gus Malzahn says he is, I think that offense, is not going to skip a beat. I think getting Duke Williams to come back is a big key for him. I think they're going to be fine running the ball with Rock and the junior college transfer. I know I talked to Muschamp a couple weeks ago. Was really excited about their front seven, particularly with Montravius Adams and Carl Lawson coming back off an injury. Pretty good at linebacker. Obviously some huge holes to figure out in the secondary, but I think will help the defense. And I think if you look at the schedule, they get Alabama at home, they get Georgia at home, they get Mississippi State at home. That's probably about as easy as it can get in the SEC West.
Bama at 7, it's a weird spot, Mark. I'm trying to remember. I think since 2008, Bama has been ranked at least in the top 2 or 3 by almost everyone. We're not saying they won't be. This is your opinion. But other than the schedule, which is at Auburn, that's always a very difficult game. What else do you see for Alabama right now?
Well, at Auburn, at Texas A&M, which I think will be a little bit better, at Georgia early on October 3rd. Again, it goes back to the quarterback position. Can Jake Coker get the job done? If it's not him, who is it? A little bit thin at running back all of a sudden with some injuries and some off-field problems. I agree with Nick Saban. I think over the last 18 months, I think Alabama has kind of lost its mojo. I don't think teams are necessarily intimidated by them like they once were. And, the secondary's had issues. You lose, even if it's Alabama, Paul, and even if it's Nick Saban. I think it's just so difficult to replace a Blake Sims, a TJ Yeldon, and Amari Cooper at the same time on offense. But, do I think Alabama's going to be in the thick of it? No question. Could they end up in the top 4? Certainly that's where they seem to be every year. So, this is just, it's May 4th. And right now, I think because of Jeremy Johnson and the fact that he's stepping in at quarterback and Gus Malzahn's offense, I'd give the edge to Auburn right now.
I know we're splitting hairs because they are the SEC champions, which is easy to forget based on how they ended the season this year and last. But how do you lose your mojo when you own recruiting every single year, you have the best coach, you have arguably the best program?
Lost to Ohio State, which was, an 8 to 10 point underdog. Mm-hmm. Got blown out by Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl. The year before that, didn't look great at times last year. It's a high standard. Saban, the ceiling is very, very high in Alabama. It's nearly impossible for anyone to sustain that success for that long. But again, when you look at some of the off-field issues they've had over the last 6 months, it's not what we've seen from Alabama teams in the past. And, they have not. Certainly Blake Sims came out of nowhere and did a tremendous job at quarterback last year, but, they haven't developed a guy to step in there like we've seen in the past.
I realize I'm beating a dead horse here to a certain extent because we're still talking about Alabama, but it's easy to say things will turn around and turn by turning around at Alabama. Mark, you well know we're talking about a national championship. But what do you see? You obviously are predicting them to finish slightly below Auburn, but do you see Alabama returning back to a national championship in the short term?
I don't think. I mean, I think they'll be in contention every year. I've got them 7th right now. I think if you go back to the very first way too early top 25, Paul, I think I had them number 10. So they've actually moved up. I mean, they just lose so much firepower on offense, and Kiffin did a great job last year. But they still have every year the number 1 ranked recruiting class in the country. I think they probably might have the best combination of offensive defensive coordinator in the country. Certainly, I don't think anybody could argue that Nick Saban is not the best head coach in the country. But you're playing in the toughest division in football. There's a really good football team right down the road where you've got to go play this year. We'll see. But I picked them in the Final Four a year ago, and they ended up getting there. But this year, I want to see it on the field first. It's a tough schedule. I mean, to open up against Wisconsin, have to play at Georgia, as we talked about, at Texas A&M, at Mississippi State, at Auburn. I mean, that's a tough slate.
No doubt. Georgia, it seems like we have this conversation every year before the season and then another one after the season. They do have Alabama at home. We know that. They're at Tennessee. They play Florida, whether they want to or not. Let's talk about Georgia.
Is Mark Richt on the hot seat this year or off? I think if they get consistent quarterback play, either out of Bryce Ramsey or Tom Bota, I think they're going to be a pretty good team on offense. Obviously, Nick Chubb, to do what he did, running for over 1,500 yards as a freshman, I think he's one of the top 2 or 3 backs in the country, if not the best back in the country. They got some nice pieces behind him, and Sony Michel, and they like this Tourman kid who was injured a year ago. I think they're pretty average at receiver. They lose Chris Conley, lose Michael Bennett. Need some freshmen to step up and help them there. I think they've got 4 starters coming back on the offensive line, so they should be solid there. I thought Jeremy Pruitt did a tremendous job last year. I mean, he was starting 2 freshmen and a walk-on in the secondary and ended up 8th in the country in scoring defense. Need to get better up front on defense. I think their linebacking core is as good as anybody in the country, if not better than anybody else, with Jordan Jenkins and Leonard Floyd, if he can get healthy, and Lorenzo Carter, who's going to be a sophomore, I think might be the best out of the whole bunch. Their schedule, I think they've only got 3 or 4 true road games, only 3 outside the state of Georgia. If you don't count the Florida game, they're at Vandy, at Tennessee, and at Auburn, and then they get Georgia Tech in Atlanta at the end of the year. So I think the schedule's manageable. Non-conference schedule is definitely not very arduous with UL Monroe and Southern, one FCS school. I think they got Georgia Southern at the end of the year, and then Georgia Tech, of course. So manageable schedule. Can they avoid the pitfalls that have plagued them in the past with the suspensions and injuries and those sort of things? But I think it's tough to put everything on one position. But I think if they get solid quarterback play, I think they should win the East.
Finally, Mark, you mentioned them in your top 15, but I've heard everything imaginable about the LSU Tigers. They're this close to breaking out and returning to where they have been so often, and they are this close to going the wrong direction. Where are they in your mind?
I think they're going to be better than last year when they they lost 5 ball games, went 8-5. Again, like Georgia, like Alabama, the quarterback position. Can Jennings or Harris get the job done? I think Harris is maybe more talented, but Jennings seems to have the intangibles you want to. I mean, obviously with Leonard Fournette, they've got a really nice guy they can build around. Didn't lose quite as many underclassmen as they have the last couple of years, and I think that's what's really hurt them. Is they've lost so many superstars on defense and at receiver, leaving early for the NFL draft, and it's a problem a lot of teams would like to have, having that many good players. But it's tough when you're losing 20 and 30 kids over a 3-year period early to the NFL. It's hard to restock that quickly.
Mark Schlabach with his way too early, not that early any longer, look at the upcoming 2015 season. Mark, thanks. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Paul.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
So you heard Schlabach talk about where he sees things. Clearly, if I had to take anything from that, I'm taking. He was careful what he said, but I got the impression Schlabach was selling bundles of stock on Alabama. The rest of it, he was pretty much right down the line. What was the takeaway of you two gentlemen from Schlabach's top 25?
Careful with gentlemen, by the way.
Used loosely. For me, it was it's the same story with Georgia. I mean, that seems to be the same every year. It's not so much this year you have a little bit of a quarterback competition, but they have a great running back. Can they get over those hurdles? And it's like when you start having everybody kind of repeat the same things, hey, can they not stub their toe again this year? If they get through, then they'll be right there and have a chance at the SEC championship and maybe the playoff.
And you see the brands up top. I mean, the brands that you know from the last couple seasons. That is LSU at 16 and Georgia at 9. I would take Arkansas at 21 and Tennessee at 20 and put them ahead of LSU and Georgia at this point for me, as far as being comfortable with what they have returning, especially at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I know I've mentioned this during the conversation, but just seeing Alabama at number 7, it's clearly a trend line, and I think Nick Saban is going to face the media in July and in August leading up to the season with questions that he hasn't had in some time. And I know folks around the SEC and the nation are going, are you kidding? I mean, the guy's in the top 10, but people are having a hard time explaining why the program that recruits better than anyone else every single year seems to have lost its mojo and seems to be losing a little bitty step. What is it and why?
This is a team that won the SEC and then made it to the semifinals, and they were up in that game.
But, Mark, though, the end of that game, though, and John said it at the time, it's left a very sour taste in the nation about where Alabama's going. That was the premium on that game. The SEC doesn't mean what it used to.
To this day, Ohio State's win over Alabama is better remembered than their win against Oregon in the national championship game. That was it. That was the title game. It's unbelievable how it finished. You know what the remaining image is for a lot of people? It's Ezekiel's Elliott running down that left sideline.
No doubt. People can't explain it.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Let's grab Robert next in L.A. Hey, Robert, thank you. Good afternoon.
Paul, first-time caller. It's an honor to speak with you.
Oh, thank you very much.
I wanted to correct one of your first callers. He was from Phoenix City, Alabama, and he did make a couple of factual errors. This is in regards to Colin Cowherd, and he said that the Pac-12 had 11 players drafted in the first round. That's incorrect. They had 9, and the Southeastern Conference had 7. But when the draft was over, he said that the SEC had 53 players. That's incorrect. They had 54, and the Pac-12 had 39. So 54 to 39, that's a pretty significant difference in favor of the SEC. And the SEC has had the most players drafted for the 9th year in a row. So I don't really think that the Southeastern Conference is going downhill.
No, I don't think it is either. And I think Cowherd's major point was that it is flipping. He has been on this Alabama dynasty over kick now for 2 years, and he's going to stay on it until proven otherwise.
Well, I think that the majority of your callers know that the Southeastern Conference has been the best, they are the best, and if you follow recruiting, they're always going to be the best because there's more good players in the Southeastern Conference states than anywhere else in the country, and the majority of those players go to SEC schools. So it's only going to stay the same. I mean, other schools might make a good run now and then, but the Southeastern Conference, I think, is going to be the best conference for as long as they're playing college football.
Robert, let me say this. Thank you. I agree with you. when I say I've written the book, it's not a cliche. It's true. I did on the SEC. However, the rest of the country gets sick and tired of hearing people here and elsewhere say that over and over again and not back it up. And there's only one way to back that up. It's not to win the national championship on the first Wednesday in February. Alabama's done that now just about every year. It's to win the national championship on the second Monday in January. And it's been 2 years since Alabama or the SEC has done that. You may say not a big deal, but in the lifespan or on the shelf life of college football, it is a big deal. Florida State from the ACC won last year. Ohio State from the Big Ten won this year. Alabama didn't win. Auburn didn't win. LSU didn't win. That's a big, big story, and folks, get used to it. If it happens again this year, if Ohio State wins or if TCU wins, then people are going to keep driving that dagger through the SEC's heart. It's a big deal. Winning the SEC is nice. Don't misunderstand me. But winning the national championship is now what it's all about. It always has been, but it's even more important now in this new era of the 4-team playoff. Jerome is in Birmingham.
What's going on, Paul?
Hey there.
Here we go again. You know, I tell you what, it don't matter if you start your show off, Paul, with nothing in the world, Paul. You can start it off with Alabama, Paul. I tell you what, you'll cruise all the way to the finish line. I tell you, Mark have no idea. Mark probably can't even make decisions or get a draft right in his own household, Paul. To get on the radio and tell us what Alabama's going to do, let me tell you something. Alabama is going to be number one, Paul. We're not worried about this. It's the same old argument, the same old conversation, the same old preaching each and every year, Finebaum. Each and every year. Oh, we can't do it on the road. Listen, we had no problem with Georgia in the last couple of years. What makes the nation think we're going to have something this year, Paul? Nothing. Just because they got Chubb.
Here, I'll tell you. Let me tell you what's happening, Jerome. People are seeing a trend developing here. Two big games now. Nick Saban has not been able to close the deal. He's admitted it. He said the other day in Dothan that something has been missing. So if something was missing 2 years ago and last year, where's it going to be this year?
Well, Paul, that's the problem. He's saying it in Dothan. What in the world is he telling these people in Dothan? He ain't got nothing to say in Dothan, Paul. He ain't done nothing to be running around trying to do a Crimson Caravan. He needs to postpone all those doggone speeches, Paul, and get his tail back to Tuscaloosa. So what in the world is he going to tell these people on the caravan what he going to do next year? He ain't done that, and that's the problem, Paul. But as far as the rest of the country, Paul, they ain't done nothing either. You know what? I bet my chances on Alabama any time of the day, Mark, and the rest of the nation. So guess what? You can put Auburn, you can put it doesn't matter, Paul. When the smoke clear, Paul, the duck is going to land and roll tide. Have a good day.
Oh, man. Have we heard that one before? Fran is up next. Fran is up in Connecticut. How are you?
Hi, Paul. Listen, I enjoy listening to your show.
Thank you so much.
I've been an Alabama fan for many, many years, and I hear all this talk about these games they lost. The paraphrase I remember from the old days, Coach Bryant, they asked him when they got beat, he said, we didn't get beat, we just ran out of time. These national media people just like to knock Alabama. It's like with the New York Yankees. It's like UCLA with John Wooden. They want to knock them. Okay, they want to knock them, and you're the big guy, and they're going to go after you. Let me tell you something. This Mark, whatever his name was, I mean, he's just looking to make some headlines. Okay, when that smoke clears like that previous caller said, Alabama was standing, because when those boys run through that tunnel and those people are shaking like in the old days in Legion Field, and I've been there many times, they just have another sense and they pull it out, and they're just going to be tough. Roll Tide.
Okay, listen, I love Alabama fans. I think everyone knows that. But, at some point saying the same thing over again is not going to make it happen. And that's all I'm hearing from Alabama fans is we're the best. We have Nick Saban, Roll Tide. But last 2 years, that hasn't helped you on the kickoff, on the field goal against Auburn. It didn't help against Bob Stoops in the Sugar Bowl. It didn't help last year at Vaught Hemingway, and it didn't help last year against Ohio State. Will it be different next year? I don't know. Hank is in Athens. How are you, Hank?
Hey, Paul, I love your show.
Thank you.
Second time I called in, but I want to say that I used to listen to Colin Cowherd on the radio, and then also I was on TV, watching on TV, and I'm not going to watch it anymore after the SEC thing. But your show's addictive, you know. I get on here and I think I'm trying to watch something, and I get on your show, and I get back on your show, and I just watch it. It's kind of mesmerizing. But nevertheless, what I want to tell you was, SEC led the draft, right? I mean, we had 54, right? And then
right, that is
ACC was
correct.
second. And take that Cowherd. I mean, what? What is he saying? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I'm a big UGA fan.
Well, I think in fairness to Colin, he spoke too soon. It's why I always hated to write a team off with a team like Alabama or Auburn, just for the sake of argument, plays that big game. You don't want to write one team off because they can save the season at the end. In Cowherd's case, his diatribe didn't take into consideration there were 2 more days left in the draft.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. ESPN Radio, bringing you directly to the biggest events in sports.
Center field, well hit, Hunter back, out of here!
From opening day of baseball,
Throw to the plate, safe at the plate!
right through the World Series.
For the 3rd time in 5 seasons, the San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
Whether it's LeBron, Chris Paul, or Kevin Durant, when the NBA tips off, ESPN Radio is right there when a champion is crowned.
We have a new world champion. The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
And when the magic of bowl season arrives, ESPN Radio is your home for the new college football playoff.
The college football playoff first national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The biggest events in sports can be found right here on ESPN Radio. This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We bring in Herm Edwards, who has an opinion on just about everything in mankind, including the NFL draft. Herm, thanks for the time, and it seems like you've recovered from the fight Saturday night as well. Everyone else is talking about it.
Yeah, and, I didn't really watch it. I had an understanding of how it was probably going to turn out. When you think about a defensive fighter, obviously, and Pacquiao is a guy that would like to charge his opponent. Mayweather does a great job of defending himself, and I think the hype of the fight, like anything else, got everyone thinking this is going to be this great contest of guys in the middle of the ring and really brawling. But as you know, Mayweather fought his fight, and he was able to win and stay undefeated.
You're a smart guy. For $100 million, would you get in the ring with Mayweather?
If I can play defense like that, I sure would.
Well, speaking of $100 million, some of the guys that went Thursday night may ultimately cash in on that much. But let's talk about some of the players that we talk about a lot here in the SEC. Certainly Fowler and Amari Cooper went first. Did you like those picks?
I really like those picks. It's kind of ironic, Paul, when you think about it. Looking at 3 of the kids early, and we're going to talk about Fowler, obviously, and Amari. Well, Jameis, as well as Mario Edwards, they were all a part of the Under Armour All-American game, the one that I coach every year. So that was my first class of guys. So it's kind of ironic. I sit here today, and I watch the draft, and I go, you know what? All those guys were just going to college like 4 years ago, and now they're number 1 picks for the most part. But I like Amari Cooper, especially going to Oakland. When you think about what they're trying to do, they got a young quarterback up there who I think is going to be very, very good in Carr. They've done some things, obviously, now to help him. And he's going to get a rookie receiver, but not really a rookie receiver. I think Amari is a polished receiver, very smart, can play anywhere at the receiver position. He can play inside, he can play outside. So I think that's a very good pick for them. Flowers obviously goes to a team. They have a defensive-minded head coach where he can come off the edge and use his skill set to get after the quarterback. So I like those 2 picks. I like where they end up because they end up in places that I think that will be managed, but they can live up to their potential because of who's coaching them.
There was so much attention a week ago on Shane Ray, what happened, what didn't happen by going a little bit earlier. It seemed like he landed okay. What was your view of the whole thing from start to finish?
Well, obviously, it's one of those deals where, decisions that you make in life, there's always consequences, and he suffered it. And rightly so. It's better he suffer it now than later. And so with that being said, he lands in a really good spot. I mean, he lands on a traditional playoff football team with one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the position in Peyton Manning. And he goes to a place now where he has two edge rushers that can teach him a lot. When you think about Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. Now, it's kind of ironic because when you think about the Denver Broncos last year against the Colts, those guys didn't touch the quarterback. So this is new blood into that system, a young guy that can learn from some seasoned veteran players, and he has the ability to come off the edge. He's playing on a team that can score points. When you play with Peyton Manning, you like playing defensive back, and you like being an edge rusher because your totals for sacks and interceptions go up because generally in about the middle of the third quarter, Paul, you're playing from behind, and you have to throw it.
What was your impression, and how do you think it will work out for Todd Gurley, arguably easily the best running back coming out of the SEC?
I think it's terrific. They went out and got some offensive linemen as well. He goes into a division, and he's playing with a head coach that has the mindset of Jeff Fisher running the football. When Jeff was with the Titans, obviously, he had tremendous running backs, as you know, that played for him, and he's been looking for a guy like this. He has that mentality to run the football. He's playing with a veteran quarterback in Foles, so he's not playing with a rookie quarterback. That'll take a lot of pressure off him because of the fact that Foles can throw the football, so that always helps runners, and vice versa. The runner helps the quarterback, so he's entering a division that basically is built this way. Great defense, good running game, and you think of the two teams that they're always battling to see who can win a division. The last couple of years, obviously, has been San Francisco and Seattle, and Arizona's part of the mix as well. But that division dictates that you have to run the football, play good defense, and even Arizona drafted a running back. So Bruce Arians knows, I've got to run the ball better. We know we can play good defense. So this is going to be an interesting division to watch.
Landon Collins just missed the first round, but were you, or how much were you surprised that he didn't go earlier?
Well, I think the problem that he ran into, he's more of an inline safety, and that's okay. I think he goes to a spot that's going to use him and use his attributes to his best ability. But in today's world of a safety, you have to be multitasked with ability. In other words, you have to come down and cover man-to-man a lot in our league anymore if you're going to use a safety that way. If you're one of those kind of guys, you generally go pretty high because you have the ability to play in space. You have the ability to cover. That's not one of his strong suits. Not saying he can't do that, but he's more of a box player, and I think he's going to be a terrific player in the National Football League.
The story, at least coming out, was La'el Collins. I mean, we still don't know a whole lot. We know that he reportedly met with officials today, but it's hard to even describe this because, I mean, there was a loss of life. We don't know the connection, but in your years of watching, I know you've seen some crazy stories, but certainly this one had to rank.
This caught everyone by surprise, Paul, and it's a sad scenario here, and you're hoping that they find something out sooner than later. So we can go forward, and so everyone can go forward with the situation, because everyone's kind of scratching their head, and it's kind of ironic. We really haven't heard a whole lot, and so it's interesting. Now I've heard on the other side of it that there are teams that are calling him right now as far as signing him as a free agent. So if he gets cleared, obviously he's going to get the ability and the chance to play in the National Football League, and sometimes being a free agent is not so bad if that comes to fruition and he's cleared. And he has the ability to go somewhere else, because now what will happen is he can probably pick the best team where he feels like he can go in right away and contribute. So that could work for him, obviously, in the long run.
Finally, he wasn't mentioned for a couple of days, but it won't be long before he's back in the news and everyone's arguing and debating. And the subject is Tim Tebow and what's going on with him with Philadelphia. What have you heard?
Well, I know this. I think Chip Kelly is obviously a guy that is always a little front of everyone else when it comes to offense. And when you think about this league anymore, Paul, the 2-point play is going to be implemented. So now all of a sudden, when you get in that territory, you got to decide a couple things. Do you run it? Do you get a big what I say, a big defensive lineman that's been an athlete, where if you want to run the football down there, he's your guy to make a yard and a half? Or do you get a quarterback that can run the option along as well as being a good runner? Well, Tim Tebow brings those things to the table. Now, we have to see what he can do playing quarterback. I mean, we know the last time he was not very accurate. He's been working on that the last couple of years. But I think if you're Chip Kelly, the thing about our league now, it's all about situation football. Now, the question I have is this, as you know, you only can dress 45 guys. So how does he make the roster? Now, if he's a big-time player, in other words, he can help you more than Chiz on the two-point play, I can see it. But remember, most teams only dress 2 quarterbacks. You would actually have to maybe dress 3, and the fact that Tim Tebow would be a specialist, but his specialty might only be offense, short yardage, down in the red zone. We have to wait to see.
Philadelphia.
Chip's always got something going, trust me.
Thank you so much, Herm. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, my
Great
friend.
stuff.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
The other day we spoke with Jim Kleinpeter about that. He covers LSU for the New Orleans Time-Picayune, and events did occur today that we were trying to get a little better understanding of. Jim, thanks again. I really appreciate you being back with us. When we last left you, everyone was confused and utterly amazed at how chaotic the situation is. Has anything changed?
Not a whole lot. Lyle has finally spoken to Baton Rouge City Police homicide detectives. He did that today at the state police headquarters. They talked for more than an hour. His attorney still says his name should be cleared, but of course nothing has come from the police yet. I spoke to a Baton Rouge Police Department spokesman today, and he said they're going to take what they learned from Lyle and apply it to the investigation, and they still don't have a motive or a suspect they have not publicly said there is one. Let me put it that way. They may have one, but they just have not said who it would be or what the motive is. There was one development today. They have ruled that the death of the unborn child has been ruled a homicide, so they're looking at a double homicide now.
Yeah, which in most states is really, one homicide is bad enough, but in some states that comes under special circumstances, and that could affect the sentencing part of this severely. But in terms of what his attorneys are saying, are they now being fairly quiet with the NFL draft in the rearview mirror?
Yeah, and again, the police reconfirmed that he is still not a suspect, even after having spoken to him. I think the attorney, if you would take what he said at face value today, you would think that Lyle's going to go start negotiating with the NFL teams, but nobody said anything yet, and nobody has said anything this whole time, which is the hard thing. It's why it's so confusing. We talked about this the other day, and you would think that he would have made a statement, his attorney would have called a press conference or something to at least give him a position in this, at least, him saying I'm innocent, but we haven't had that yet, and you never know why they don't. Long term, maybe his defense attorney thinks this is the best thing, not to say anything at all, but you would think that he would.
And I hate to even get to the next phase of this, which is the NFL, but what is it going to take for him to be able to negotiate? Is it a clean slate here? Is that what we're talking about?
I would say if the police eliminate him as a suspect, then I don't know what else could be done. That's what they would have to do. They would pretty much have to come out and say that. And they're the ones that are going to have to say that for his sake. And I hate to keep making it. They've said they just wanted him for questioning, so that's all we know. And I think once they do that, if they do that, then I don't see anything stopping him, and I don't know why an NFL team, what else they could hold against him in that respect. So I guess you just have to wait and see. It's not anything I've seen before, in connection with the draft like this. It's just amazing.
Jim, just from a pure financial standpoint, I know everyone says it doesn't matter because of what's going on here, but from where he was projected to a likely free agency, do you have any earthly idea the differential?
Well, in some ways he has an advantage. He can pretty much pick his team now, depending on. This is all supposing that he is cleared. He can pick his team. He's only going to be committed to a team for 3 years. So if they want to play hardball with him, he could become a restricted free agent after 3 years. But he can also renegotiate his original contract after 2 years, and that gives him an advantage over most players that are picked after the third round. I mean, he can, in a few years, he can make up a lot of the money that he lost, but he'll never make up that signing bonus that he would have gotten as a first-round pick. That's money that's the money that's gone right there, and that is unless he blows up after 3 years and does really well and becomes a hotly pursued restricted free agent.
In terms of the clarification on him being a suspect, not being a suspect, I mean, what are we I realize police departments, investigative bodies don't really care what the rest of us think. They don't, particularly with a confusing case, but I mean, is there an expectation that someone down there is going to say, he's free and clear, we don't need him any longer, we've gotten everything we needed from him, and he is free to go?
I think there would be if that is the case, because he has this. The attorney he's hired is a veteran, a seasoned attorney, and he would definitely push the police department to issue that statement, to make it clear that he's not a suspect. And I think one of the reasons that this might be an issue is because the woman was pregnant. She's his former girlfriend. And they've got to determine whether or not he's the father of the baby, because then that puts the case in a new light. If he's not the father of the baby, then perhaps they've got nothing left to do with Lyle Collins. But I know this attorney, and he's not gonna let this just evaporate or string out over a long period of time. He's going to want to know. He's going to push them to make some kind of a statement to clear him.
We had a caller the other day, a very angry LSU fan, claims to have known Lyle, knows all about him, and you know where I'm going here. What is the mood in Louisiana right now on him, and in particular on what the police have done in this investigation?
Well, I think most LSU fans see him as, a shining example of what an LSU football player should be. He was an Eagle Scout. He's loves his mother. It's a classic story, and he was a leader. He came back to LSU. He's not a selfish type player. He's your typical offensive lineman who knows how to subjugate his own ego for the betterment of the team. He was not a person you would see, trying to hog the media spotlight ever. In fact, he avoided us more than anything else. I think most people are kind of pulling for him because they know him to be this way, or it's the perception they've gotten from him. He's an intelligent guy. It's surprising to me that he's mixed up in something like this, based on what I've seen in 4 years of him being at LSU. And I think most people are pulling for him, and almost to the point where they forget the tragedy that happened, and that's the sad part, because this woman's memory is being overwhelmed by the publicity that Lyle Collins was getting, and it's really a shame that it's like that, but that's how it is.
Yeah, no doubt, Jim. Thank you so much. It's always good to catch up. Your reporting on this has been very helpful to all of us, and we'll talk again soon, I hope.
My pleasure, Paul.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Larry in Missouri.
Hey, Mr. Finebaum, how you getting along today?
Okay.
Hey, great. Hey, I tell you what, I appreciate that last little interview. Believe it or not, I'm a women's softball big fan. I got a shout out Darn Chamberlain, the great Sooner, the Babe Ruth of women's softball, all-time home run hitter this year. Hey, I did want to kind of get in on the Tide people today are even more ridiculous than usual. I mean, let's look at this thing. First, Oklahoma destroys them. It's Roll Tide. Then Hugh Freeze pumps them out. Roll Tide. Then Urban comes along, just kills them. Roll Tide. They ain't got no secondary. Roll Tide. Now, let's look at it. You ain't got no running back there. Roll Tide. You ain't got no quarterback. Roll Tide. You hanging your head on the defense. It's been shredded 2 straight years. Roll Tide. But you know what? Eventually, you got to quit rolling that tide and try to win some big games. Hey, as far as the fight, I have to say I went to the baseball game downtown Saturday, the Cardinals and the Pirates. And, you know, when you drink those $10 beers, you make a lot of bad decisions. So I came home and I got that thing, $90. And that wasn't the worst $90 I've ever spent, but it was doggone close to it. I mean, as boring as can be, just 2 old men out there, especially Pacquiao. I mean, this dude looked like Charles from Railtown out there fighting. I mean, he's way over his prime. Now, Floyd, I'll have to give him credit. He's a very unpopular person, but he's the smartest boxer that ever lived. I mean, he's going to walk off with most money. And he's never even been hit hard one time. I mean, this guy is a boxing genius. There's no doubt about that. And you got to give him his credit for that. The last thing I'll say, I heard Teddy talking earlier. Bless his heart, he's even older than I thought. I mean, if he's sitting around watching these roasts, these Dean Martin roasts, I mean, there ain't nobody short of 70-year-olds.
Well, I think they were. I think the Dean Martin roasts were in the early '70s, were they not?
Right. I mean, and nobody today would think that stuff's funny unless you're about 70 years old. But anyway, I did want to turn him on to this real cool musician. He might. I think he'd like. Old boy named Lawrence Welk. Thanks, Paul. Don't say.
Oh man. Selena in Columbus, Ohio, is up next.
Wow. Jim's not having a very good couple of weeks, is he?
Mm.
Yeah. I guess I'm not the only one laying some heavy wood on him these days.
Larry was ready today.
Yeah, he was. He was. The Lawrence Welk line, that was a doozy. I give it a 2 thumbs up. I wanted to actually
And a
address
1
something
and a
else.
2.
Indeed, but not a 3 and a 4.
No.
I actually wanted to address something that Larry touched on, and I got to say, you know, Bama fans, God love them, they support their team, but got to stop having the attitude that just because journalists aren't picking Alabama to win, you know, the national championship or the SEC, that's some big conspiracy. It's not a big conspiracy. There's huge, glaring problems with the Alabama team this year, not the least of which is the fact that 5 quarterbacks played in the spring game and threw 54% completion rates, 3 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. You cannot win a national championship unless you have committed talent at quarterback. Enough committed talent so that, say, the impossible happens and you end up going to the national semifinal with your 3rd stringer, you know that he's going to be able to play with that kind of competition. And right now...
You know what, Selena, what happens, I mean, this is now... hold on. Someone, can we get this arranged here, guys? Apparently... My question is, what happens when if this goes on another year, though, Selena? Because by the way, Jim wants to say hello to you.
Yeah. Selena, you know, you're a moron, like I said you were a long time ago. You believe those internet lies about me being anywhere near 70. That's a lie. That's an old standard from scuzzball old guys that are really old, like that moron Ray from Missouri. And you get in and run your mouth every day with no content, no substance. I look, you moron.
Coming from you. You know, when I call this show, I call up to talk about sports. I don't call up to talk about myself. So as soon as you're able to call up and discuss, like, SEC sports with any kind of substance or relevance whatsoever, please don't play the victim card and act like you're getting bamboozled or abused because nobody likes to listen to your call.
He's old enough to be my father, Selena, and you're probably old enough to be my mother, but I wouldn't take either one of you for nothing in regard to that.
Well, that's good. That's good because we understand football and you don't have a clue. And evidently, we understand boxing and you don't understand that either. Oh, yeah, whatever. Just keep flapping your trap.
who's who, and you ain't nothing compared to me.
You're
Simple
just
as
mad
that.
because I use page
No,
54 of Finebaum's
you're
book
just a
to light my
blowhard.
grill.
That's all you are, just a loudmouth, arrogant blowhard.
That's true.
You
But I understand
what
football
can you
and you
bring to the
don't.
show,
So.
Selena, except putting somebody down? Have you ever heard the old saying, Selena, anybody that belittles other people is really probably very little theirself. That's
You're
why
getting
you do
quite
it.
handy
You
with
got
those
nothing else.
self-diagnoses,
You
Jim.
got
The
nothing
only
else
two
to
people,
bring to
the
the
only
show
things you talk
but
about when you
insults,
call are yourself.
Well, hold on, one at a time here.
Like about 95% of the other female callers on this show. There was a
really?
good caller today, but not you. You've never been a good caller.
Hey,
Well,
Jim,
that's probably because you
hold
like-
on a second. I really was offended by that. Selena, I'll let you respond about the female line.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. Here's the deal.
What are you
When
offended
I
about,
call
Paul?
up, hey, yo, you had your
Hey,
chance.
yo.
Now shut up and listen. When I call up to talk about sports because that's what the show is about. It's about sports. It's not about Jim from Tuscaloosa's boring life or what he did or what he thinks he knows. We call up to talk about sports. Now, I was perfectly prepared to talk about sports until you decided
Hold on, Jim. Let me jump in here for a
So-
second. Hold on a second. Jim, you're entitled to say whatever you want. That's great, okay? But I really, when I said I was offended, I don't like painting a broad brush about every female caller. We have a lot of great
Paul,
female.
I was over the top there.
That's okay. Go
Over
ahead,
the top.
Selena.
But you know, this woman, she's been on here every time she comes on here. She tries to use me as a platform to beat her way to fame. She can't do that. You know that.
Sweetie, I don't need to use your name for any kind of
Let me ask you
platform.
something. I'm trying to tell this moron woman from Ohio. Do you think you would risk your journalistic career saying what you said about me in your book had I not been able to do it for many, many years? Is that not fact? If that's not a fact, tell me.
No,
all I know is on page 54 in your book, you made the
I
best
said it.
statement of the
Listen, I put it
made.
there for many, many people to see. I think it's pretty obvious what I meant.
Yeah.
Well, you know what you meant. I know what you meant. Everybody else knows, but they can't take that away. They can't. They can say all the lies they want to about me being old, and that's a bunch of lies. You know that. I wish you could.
Go ahead. Jim, all I ask of you is let Selena talk, and then you can
Thank
respond,
you.
okay?
This poor man has been nothing but abusive and egotistical and everything like that from the first day I started listening to this show. You have to realize he's stalked me on Twitter for a while before he blocked me because I disagreed with him.
All you can do is
And he
insult.
told me
That's
he was
not
going to
cop.
call the cops because I
you're
told him that I ripped page 54 out of your book and lit my grill with it.
Oh my goodness! This
Does
woman
that
is all
sound
she
like
got
a normal
is
person?
typical sadistic insults. That's all she's about.
Okay. That's all fine. Can we
Okay,
get back
guys.
to talking about football now?
Okay,
Please?
it didn't go 12 rounds. We'll leave it there. We can
It's
let
just a
people.
lie, Paul. That's all. Just a simple lie, like Sturzball Larry.
Yeah, that's it. That's
That's
why
all
you
you
get so
are.
offended so
Why don't you
easily.
call about something that makes you don't have any knowledge of anything?
If you would just shut up,
that's what
for a
people
change,
like
I'd
you
really
go
like
to.
to talk about football.
All they can go to is Paul, can I talk about football? Paul, do I know football?
Unfortunately, we are out of time.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
I'm in down in Alabama. How did you score the fight?
You know, Paul, as the longest continuous caller on this program, it's obvious Selena ate Jim's lunch, and she used his own words to do it. He said that if you got to call in here and you got to talk about other people, I monkey and old man and all those kind of things, you don't have conversation. She beat him to death with his own old words, and she drugged that old fella. Jim, Selena, you may have to pay Jim's hospital bills because I know he fell and broke a hip. And you know what happens when a hip goes? You know, and then he never talks about. He always diverged. He diverts attention.
I don't know. I mean,
Just like
I thought Jim was pretty civil there. I thought he responded to what
No,
she
he
said.
wasn't.
Well, let's be honest, there's a better chance of you being objective about some terrorist than it would be for you to be objective about Jim from Tuscaloosa. Let's be honest. I think you have to. You wouldn't say anything good about Jim.
I've always said good things about Jim.
No, come on.
Yes, I have. I mean,
Well, not lately. You haven't.
He was telling me for years until I called him out when he questioned you because he talked himself into a corner and blamed you. Jim was coattailing me forever, and he's been doing.
Jim was coattailing you?
Absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
Absolutely, he was. Yes, I'm telling you the truth. Just like you covered for that lie he told Friday. Paul, listen, you're gonna have to put some meat on that lettuce because you're losing your damn senses, and you're all.
I'm losing my senses. You're a moron. You know that?
You're a moron. And you know what? I'll tell you so. Because you covered for that poor lie.
No, I have not. I have not covered for him.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
How can you cover for a caller to a show like this? Please tell me that, man.
That. He said he met Marciano when he was 18.
He was wrong, okay?
No, you were wrong for covering for him. You gave him an out. You don't give anybody an out. You covered. Is he your poor Uncle Ernie? Have you got some blood relation to him? Are you in his will or something?
I have never met the man, okay?
You know, and then when he went to, about page 54, Paul, that wasn't even in
the conversation. Hey, man, what is he telling a falsehood about page 54?
That wasn't even it. He diverted attention away from the topic, Paul. He couldn't even stay on topic. And you're going to say he won?
I didn't say anything of the sort.
Yes,
I just simply said that you are not objective about anything connected to this person. That's all I'm saying.
You're calling me not objective, and you
just sound like a raving lunatic tonight. That's all. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN Radio app.